All right. Hi, everybody. This is Steve, the Wellness Warrior Coach. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that topic is play. I think we lose sight of play a lot when, as we age, as we get a career, we forget about it. But it is something that is super important no matter what. So let me get things rolling here. All right. All right, so our series here is keeping it simple with Coach Steve. So I'm going to try to simplify play today. So don't forget play. Play is super important, and it's probably one of the most forgot about things in health and wellness coaching. I think a lot of health and wellness coaches focus on some of the bigger things, but play is definitely one of those things that we need not forget. So that's what we'll talk about today. All right. All right. So first of all, just to cover this, I'm a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. And this presentation is for educational and informational and coaching purposes only. It is not a substitute for medical advice or mental health advice in any way, shape, or form. So please use this for that purpose. If you want to talk about it further, we can chat some other time. All right, so as far as me, there I am with the big statue of a red knot, which is a shorebird. Like I said, I'm a health and wellness, I'm a certified health and wellness coach. I'm a race director as well. I direct my own obstacle course race. I'm a primal health coach, a bird watcher, which is part of my play. And I really stress to people about their health and happiness because they go hand in hand. All right, so what is play? So like I said, play is super important, and play, strictly looking at the definition, is defined as when your happiness is not tied to the outcome. All right. Einstein said play is the richest form of research, which is super interesting that he would say that. So think about, as we go through this presentation today, what is your play? All right, so it's super important for chemical and biological reasons. We'll talk a little bit about how it could improve your mood, reduce your stress, give you greater happiness, and feel more alive. Now, for me, definitely does that. Not right now, since I'm a little less mobile, but for the most part, it definitely serves that bill. So before we get into what play actually does and the different types of play, let's talk about the hormones that could potentially be produced when you do this happiness play activities. So the 4 feel-good hormones that can possibly be released when you do play or do something that is unscripted are endorphins, oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin. So let's talk about endorphins first. So these are released and interact with pleasure pain receptors in your brain. So when these are released, some people, when they run, say they have a runner's high, it makes you feel more positive. It definitely energizes your outlook on things. For me, it definitely helps me think better. It also has some underlying things of helping your response, and it definitely boosts your self-respect. Oxytocin, on the other hand, is that love, hug, and touch hormone. So this is a hormone that's released when you embrace somebody, give them a high five, a friendly hug on the on the ultimate frisbee pitch or whatever. So these are very powerful brain neurotransmitters that help build, more powerful links in your brain. So super important. And it helps with relationships. It helps bond people together, which is what hugs do, right? It actually helps with recognition of people when you share those special moments with people. It helps make some neural pathways in your brain to connect that positive feeling with that person. So these are especially evident with those games that are involved in touch. All right, dopamine is the next one. Dopamine is that reward drug. This makes the powerful feel-good hormone that improves and boosts the amount of pleasure, and it contributes to happiness, cognitive ability, improved attention. So dopamine can also be super bad as well. But even though it's a feel-good hormone, you get a little bit of a dopamine hit when your phone goes off. And then if you have too many of these dopamine hits, then your body starts to get stressed. So it's important to monitor those in some respect. The constant dinging of your phone gives you a little bit of a dopamine hit every time. So, it's a little tip that I wasn't going to talk about later, but think about turning those notifications off or putting them on silent mode, especially, when you go to bed. And we talked about this during the sleep section, where you don't want those external stimuli interfering with your sleep. So I'm thinking about I've heard people play I don't know what it's called, like Bingo Blitz on the computer. So those noises that Bingo Blitz makes is pulling on your dopamine and your dopamine receptors. So the reason why they're so addictive is because you get that little dopamine hit every time you hear those little slot machine noises going for your Bingo Blitz, or for any game for that matter. It could be Words with Friends, it could be video games that kids play, whatever. So dopamine is a big one, and it makes you feel good initially, but it can also stress you out if you have too many of those little hits over time, if you know what I mean. All right, serotonin is the next one. So this one impacts your mood, your ability to sleep, memory, and learning. So this is really linked to helping prevent depression. When there's an imbalance of this serotonin, it can cause mental stress. And so this is one that's wrapped into the stress as well. So, and again, most of these are feel-good hormones. They can also be abused if we have too much of those in any one particular time. Not one particular time, but over time. All right, so why should adults play? Love this slide. And I love this quote also. We do not stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. So as we go through the rest of this presentation, really think about that long and hard, and, think about what your play is. And I think there's a lot of things in here that you have done in the past that you could easily rekindle for yourself. So here's some ways that playing helps you. Now, we just talked about the hormones, and that I kind of grouped each one of these things in the particular hormones that it was grouped with. And I'm going to, separate those all out and just talk about those individually. So the first one is that when you play, you generally become less stressed because you're releasing endorphins. You feel better able to handle things. It enhances your sense of well-being. So When I exercise, I feel a lot less stressed. Um, just like I said, I'm able to maybe not necessarily do more, but do things more effectively. How's that? When adults play, you have better relationships. It's a place where you can, build trust in people. It releases endorphins when we bond, and joking and laughing releases oxytocin, which enhances those connections. Remember that said, hug hormone, right? That oxytocin, that love hormone. So better relationships have more love involved. Whether you call it love or like, or just, friends, whatever you want to call it, but you build stronger bonds with those people when you play with those people, whatever that is. And we'll talk about ways to play in a little bit. Generally speaking, when you play, you have more energy. When I play games, I tend to have a lot more energy. I feel, more alive, especially if I do things outdoors. I feel, energized. Just being outdoors and, playing games. It doesn't have to be outside, but it definitely can be, especially if these types of play are, involved in physical activities. Some of the activities that I'll talk about for play aren't necessarily physical, but they also work your mind. All right, to be more creative. Most people, when they exercise, are able to think more clearly. And that goes with the next one, improve brain function. So creativity and brain function are kind of like, they go hand in hand. I feel like when I, especially when I run, when I'm able to run, I think of things, whether they're things that I need to do or things that are better ways to go about those things, or, how to approach things differently. That all happens when I run. I'm not a huge fan of running, but I know how positive it makes me feel and how it makes me think when I do that. So releases those good hormones so you can be creative and you can improve your brain functioning. When we just sit sedentary and that sugar in our system just is laying around in there and letting us slow us down, we kind of get into a kind of a funk, and it's hard to get started again. So improving brain function, and we'll talk a little bit more about this on the specific types of examples, but puzzles are a way to improve brain function as well. So puzzles and, crossword puzzles and stuff like that are a type of play, and they do help brain function. They keep that mind sharp. So a lot of evidence that when we stop doing some of these things, that our brain definitely starts to decay. When I attended my Parkinson's wellness and recovery class, one of the things that they mentioned during that class was that when people stopped doing their job, some of them were doing playful jobs too. That's when, after they retired and they didn't have as much purpose, we talked about purpose last week, or in the last presentation with connections, we one second. We get higher brain function when we do that connection. We're able to write better. When you exercise, you're able to sleep better. You're more confident because of those hormones that are being released. A lot of times people, when they exercise a lot, are able to set more ambitious goals for themselves. and they're able to go after those things that they want a lot easier with that exercise or play that they are involved with. All right, so let's talk about specific things that we can do to incorporate play in our lives. So games are a good way to get those feel-good hormones going. All right, bunches of different things that you can do, puzzles, you know, a rummy cube, even board games. That's a type of play. Remember, these are spontaneous things. So when you play games, you don't necessarily know what's going to happen, but you kind of have to keep your mind open to the new possibilities that could happen. Video games, you know, to some extent, are a way to kind of lose yourself and play a little bit. One of the computer games that I play is Words with Friends. So that kind of takes me away from, you know, what I'm thinking about, whether that's good or bad, and, you know, gets my brain working a little bit. Card games is another way to play. Dice games, word or number games, you know, Sudoku, Kuruku, you know, Scrabble, you know, Scattergories is another one. So larger group games is another thing that you can do to get those, you know, sometimes they're stressful hormones, but, you know, a lot of times they are, you know, feel-good hormones as well, like, you know, bingo or Keno or, you know, Pictionary is a large group game that you can do with people. Then outdoor games, those are my personal favorites. So have to be, you know, intense games, but think about those times that you've ever played bocce or shuffleboard or, you know, even tossing a balloon back and forth. You know, if you've ever played pickleball before or badminton, you know, frisbee golf, or, you know, I like to play ultimate frisbee. You know, think about how you felt and the connections that you made during that and how you felt after that. Right? All good stuff. So finding things that you can play while you're at home is another thing as well. So that could just mean stretching. You know, you don't necessarily have to have a plan for stretching. All right. Even these unscripted things are really good. Experiment in the kitchen could be something that you play. All right. It'd be exciting to make a new recipe that's all of your own. Taking an online class keeps your mind active, and you don't know what's necessarily going to be coming next. So, you know, these aren't your stereotypical play things, but, you know, they help keep your mind active. You know, simplify your life and play a little bit. You know, invest in or make a bird feeder. All right. And bird feeding is kind of like with the nature connection we when I talked about in the last lesson. So that's dealing with the nature connection. All right. So play out on the town. So, you know, moving from in the house to going outside. So go bowling, you know, play shuffleboard outside, visit a farmer's market, that could be play, even go dancing. I have a client that, you know, dances in the kitchen. So that's a form of play that they do at home. You know, volunteerism could be a type of play as well. Visit a museum, tour a battlefield, go pick blueberries somewhere. Those are all, you know, unscripted things that you have to make decisions about that could feed into these feel-good hormones. All right, so more outside stuff. I wouldn't necessarily say take a walk is a type of play, but it definitely can go unscripted. You can, you know, go different ways. Golfing is a type of play, even if you go mini golfing. You know, sometimes that's just fun, you know, to, you know, whack a little ball around. Work in the garden could be considered play. You know, taking a bike ride, if you like to fish, that's a type of play for some other people. Some people like to hunt for their play too. I like to hunt for birds with my binoculars. So I'm going to count that as hunting for myself. So going metal detecting, even geocaching, these are all different types of play that you can do that release these good hormones that you can share with somebody, that you can get in touch with the nature connection and the social connection while you release these good feel-good hormones that we talked about before. Awesome. So a summary of play. So based on everything that you heard, think about these questions to yourself. Can you afford not to play? I really like that question. Think about the costs and benefits of play. And, if you really think about all the things that were in this presentation, I don't really think there's much debate on whether you should or should not play. I think finding something that resonates with you is super important. There was plenty of examples in there. Like I said, for me, bird watching and bird listening is a type of play for me. I like to play ultimate frisbee. I like to run a little bit. Even biking can go off script and be a type of play as well. So, and sharing that brings in, the social connection, and doing those things outside bring in the nature connection, which we've talked about before. All right, that's my little short presentation on play. Appreciate you coming and listening to this.